back to another great edition of It's a Woman's World. Well, we're excited to have you here because we have a vision of a vibrant, inclusive, and sustainable world that starts not only here, but we are going to focus on West Central Minnesota. Women are making the move all throughout the world, and we're going to highlight just that today. And so let me go ahead. As you know, I don't do this by myself, and we all do this together. Let's invite our guests, starting first with Barbara Lavalier. It is always so good to see you.
Well, thank you, Jamila. And this is a special day to have Anna with us. As now, I met her when I think it was just probably the first day or the first week that you started your job at the West Central Initiative. So,
Yes.
Looking forward to asking questions.
Yes, thank you. And Nadia Jordana.
I'm delighted to be here today. That organization in West Central Minnesota, it's new to me, so I'm excited to learn about it. This is going to be a good show today.
Absolutely, as it always is. And Melissa Nambangi.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here today too, because I'm just wondering how Anna finds the time to do all what she does.
And Candy Pettiford, welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Anna, I cannot wait to talk to you and get some questions going.
Yes,
Thanks,
and
Candy.
welcome. Welcome, Anna Wasescha from West Central Initiative, the CEO. And of course, you do so many things. But as I was reading the mission of the organization that you lead, you do some very great things and you're driven by some very great principles and values. Would you tell me when you came in to your position, your mission, of course, aligned? Tell me how. How did your mission align with the mission of the organization of giving and sustaining in the communities and really allowing funding and philanthropy to lead the way?
Yeah, thanks for that question, and thanks to all of you for hosting me on this show today. I came to this role from community college where I was the president. And as you were starting the show, I was thinking, I used to have a weekly radio show at the college, Middlesex Moments. And I would say, well, welcome back, just like you just did. So it brought back those memories. Community colleges are really special places in America. There was one or two or three or four at the beginning of the 20th century, but they really started after the Second World War. And the idea was that people would have access to higher education wherever they lived. So they're distributed all over the country and at a very affordable rate. And initially, these were free colleges, which, history is repeating itself because we're now talking about free community college again. I think of them as democracy's colleges. I think the idea is to lift up every person and help them reach their highest potential. And I believe that community foundations do the same thing. We just have a different set of tools. But it's the same idea, which is that human communities are incredibly special places. And the more we can do to knit them together and help everyone benefit from them, the better our world will be. So that's how it aligns.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. The West Central Initiative is headquartered in Fergus Falls, and that's the town where I was born.
Oh,
So that's one
that.
connection that you probably didn't know. I'd like to hear about the West Central Initiative. When did it start? What is the purpose, and what does the initiative do to the communities?
Sure. It's interesting to me because the initiative foundations in Minnesota are not that old, they were all started. There are 6 of us, and we were started in 1986. So we're getting close to 40, but we're still in the 30s, 30 something organizations. And so in terms of age, but there are 6 of us and we cover all of greater Minnesota. We're very different one from the other. We're a consortium. We're not twinned at the hip or anything like that. We were created by the McKnight Foundation out of a really, I think, inspired understanding that the economy was in a state of upheaval. They wanted to make sure that rural Minnesota was as healthy as urban Minnesota because they understood they were interconnected, and they wanted to provide their financial assistance to rural Minnesota, but they weren't of and for and by rural Minnesotans. And so they created these 6 initiative foundations so that people much closer to the ground and who knew and understood what was going on would be able to use philanthropic dollars to help solve some of those problems. And at that point, it was really a major transition in the agricultural economy. And when you think about it, the family farms, right? People that were very labor intensive, family farms often had many, many children. Barbara, you probably knew families with 12 children because you needed people to run farms. Now, 1 or 2 people can farm 5,000 acres. So even that, in terms of the mechanisms of industrial agriculture, have really changed. So then, of course, there's a ripple effect. You know, all the little towns were having problems because the farm economy was so weak. And yeah, so that was what started us. And then the kind of interesting and unique thing about West Central Initiative is that in the 1990s, we also took on the responsibility of a regional development organization. And now there are 10 of those. So 6 initiative foundations, 10 regional development commissions, and we're an organization, not a commission, but that's a fine point, that also cover most of greater Minnesota. And there the idea is that regional planning is necessary so that the interconnectedness, again, of these communities is observed and supported. So for example, think about broadband, right? Access to the internet, super important. You don't just do that in the town of Fergus Falls or whatever, or the city of Minneapolis. You connect the world. And so you have to do regional planning to make that work. And we do both of those things.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question. I might get a little deep here, Miss Anna.
Okay.
But you know, did any men say, "Oh well, why should it be headed by a woman?" Or I should say, and did they say, she looks kind of yeah, you know, the Me Too movement? Did you get any of that? So let's kind of do the twofer there. Making you think.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I always would marvel. My grandmother, I had 2 grandmothers. One of them was a farm person, and in the course of her life, she observed farming with animals, right? Not with tractors, but horses, all the way to putting a man on the moon. And you would marvel at the changes that she saw. And I have, you know, I don't know that I've seen anything quite that dramatic, but I will say this: when I first started working, I was asked when I was planning to get pregnant, because that's when I would have to leave the job. So how long could you have that job? I later hired, I mean, I've been hiring people throughout the course of my professional career, but I hired a man who said to me, his friends wondered whether he could really actually work for a woman. Was he really sure he wanted to do that? And things have changed, right? I mean, things have changed. And the majority, I would say, of the people who work at West Central Initiative are female. And that's because we hired the best and the brightest. And that just happened to be how the gender rolled out. You know, yeah, I've observed, as we all have, right? All of us on this community have observed a lot of changes in terms of how women in the workplace. Oh my heavens! Let me just say this. So when I got my first job, I thought I better learn more about what I'm doing, because I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. So I went to take some graduate courses at the University of Minnesota, one of which was called Career Development of Women. A whole course in women's career development. At that time, women went into 7 fields, and we can name them. We now call them flight attendants, but it used to be stewardess, nurse.
Oh yeah, you're talking my language.
Homemaker, secretary, and that was it. I'm, you know, and 3 more that don't.
Teachers or
Teachers, thank you. And so in a way, career development was kind of simple. Like, which one did you want to do? You know,
Mhm.
and then there was sequential piece about being a mother. You know, because then you had to be home. And now, I mean, we don't live in that world anymore. Yeah, and thank heavens. When I think about Me Too, a
Well,
piece of it is, have I been sexually harassed?
Yeah,
have
that's
You
what
know,
you that's what you're
that's the
right,
asking.
that's
question
where
you're
I'm at.
asking,
That's
right?
where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure,
Okay. Yeah.
I was
sure.
gonna say, most women would say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a quick question.
You're right, Candy. Thanks for that question, because it's important for us to have that spoken
Yes.
out
That is
loud.
really
It
true.
is, especially women in the workplace. I mean, that we all endure some levels of that, and we've had to stand,
Yeah.
our ground on certain areas. Yeah.
I have a quick question. Well, I don't know how quick it is, but I'd like to know within your organization, could you differentiate? I noticed grant making and loans were two important areas. Can you differentiate between those two things?
Sure, sure. First of all, foundations in general are known for giving grants, and a grant is first. There are a lot of rules around grants. One of which is when you give it, you give it. You can't take it back, and you can't really extract much more than what the person said they would do when they asked for the funding. So you give a grant, and you hope that the individual, organization, whatever that you've given it to, will fulfill the agreement, kind of a covenant in a way, that they will do the work that they say they will do. But a loan is very different, and a loan is an unusual thing for a foundation to get involved with. And when I first started, my brow was furrowed, like, why are we doing this? And now I totally understand why we're doing this. And here's the thing. First of all, a loan gets repaid, right? So there's that piece of it. But the other piece is that it keeps our organization in contact with the individual or business that we lend the money to over a course of years. And that means that we come alongside them and we help in a way, I mean, in a good way. So we have, these loans adhere to banking regulations. So one thing we do is we just check their financial statements to make sure they're still operating. But if they need help, we help them. And if they, and during various times of pressure in the economy, 2009 comes to mind, because it's kind of legendary in this office. We just suspended the loan payments. We just said, we're not a bank. So we can just say, start paying us back when you can pay us back. Not, we're going to close you down and we're going to take the collateral and any of that. So, our organization has really had a very strong hand in redeveloping this economy in greater Minnesota because of that loan program.
Wow.
And here's another
Awesome.
piece of it, which is we make some smaller loans on our own. Somebody needs $25,000, we can do that. But with bigger loans, we are what's called a gap financer. So a bank will say, we'll give you 80% of the project, 80% of
Cover
what you
the
need,
rest.
but you're going to have
Mhm.
to find somebody else, to get you to where you need to be. And we step into that frame, and that puts us in. So this is also really good. That creates a relationship with the banks in a community, and the banks, have a lot to do with the strength of the local economy. So
For
when
sure.
they are working with a philanthropic organization like us, they get to hear how we think about things. We get to hear how they think about things. And then as partners, we can make things happen that otherwise would never happen. So it's been very healthy development, I think, for this foundation, and the other initiative foundations also make loans, but most foundations don't.
One of the things that struck me about what you do is you talked of rural democracy. And I'm wondering, how is that different from all the regular democracy that is practiced all over? What makes it stand out or stand by itself?
So Melissa, could you tell me, say some more about that question?
Oh, okay. So I saw that one of the things you are involved with is rural democracy. I'm
Yes.
wondering, why not just democracy, but rural? Is there something different about that kind of democracy from all the rest that we know?
Yeah, well, the democracy part is not different at all, but here's the really important piece of that. In rural places, there are more units of government per capita per the population than you would ever find in an urban area. So let me give you an example. In the 9 counties that make up my region, there are about 250,000 people. And we need 1,860 people to be elected to office to represent these 9 counties. And why is that? It's county commissioners, it's 32 school districts with 32 school boards. It's 82 towns with a mayor and 82 city councils. It's township boards. It's sewer and water districts. It's soil and natural resource districts. It's just, they're just everywhere. And when you take the same 250,000 people in an urban area, you may need under 100 people to run for office. So 100 people to 1,860, it's a lot. And also, most of these offices are either poorly paid or not paid at all. So they're volunteer. And yet they're part of representative democracy, right? And so as the population changes, people and it's a difficult time in the political realm anyway because of the impact of social media and polarization and all the other stuff that we all know about, and so it's concerning because you want really good people to be your leaders. So we run a whole spectrum of programs, from introducing new Americans in our region to what is American democracy. Like, can you go to a city council meeting? Can you sign up to speak? Can you, are you registered to vote? Are you eligible to vote here? Do you know where to vote? Do you know how a caucus runs? Minnesota's democracy runs on a caucus system, and that's a kind of an inside ballpark kind of thing. And so not everybody grows up learning how a caucus is run and how to get involved in one. So we do that. We also have a program that trains people to run for office, and that covers things like how much money do you need to raise? How do you raise it? Door knocking, how do you do it? What's your platform? Why would anybody vote for you? So they practice that and they give a speech, like, I'm running for Star Lake Township because I think the culverts and along the roads need to be changed, and here's what I'm going to do to make that happen. So there's all of that. And then we're supporting mayors right now. We have 82 mayors, as I said, and we have a project where we're supporting them in office because it's a lonely place to be. And it's lonely because you're the leader, but it's not anonymous, because in a small town, when you go to the hardware store or the grocery store or whatever, somebody's tapping you on the shoulder saying, what about that pothole in front of my house? And when are you going to fix it?
That
So,
part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's quite remarkable.
It is.
How many people did you say have to run for office that you need?
1,860, and they have to be 18 years of age or older. So that there's no cap. So you can be 97.
Wow.
But you can't be 16. So yeah, right.
Wow.
What a blessing.
So tell me, what do you like and what do you dislike about the job?
Well, what I like is that I feel, especially I will tell people without any equivocation whatsoever, this is my last job. So what I like about it is I'm doing everything I think is really important. I'm putting my mark on things. So the rural democracy, democracy in general, very important to me. Climate change work, very, very important to me. Welcoming America / equity, it's becoming, a complicated subject to discuss, but for me, super important that we think of ourselves as being in a pluralistic democracy.
Yes.
We're not all the same color and ethnicity. We're pluralist.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what a gift. What a gift that is. But, the price of that kind of freedom is eternal vigilance. So we have to stay on it and work on it.
Yeah.
So I love that part. I don't, the other stuff we've learned, like the question about the Me Too movement, nothing, as I always say to my daughter, nothing really worth doing is easy to do.
No.
So, just get over it and go back to work. You can work on this. Yeah.
Work on it. Well, I like how you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You recently traveled to Cuba as part of your position.
Good.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? How that fits in?
Well, it fit in under the heading of community health, public health, and climate change. And there's a whole nursing program at the University of Minnesota that focuses on planetary health. I learned a lot myself about it. I mean, I think as we would all reflect on what would that mean for us. I mean, it's all kinds of things that, pests and insects and Lyme's disease and, mosquitoes and all of the things that we know will move north as the climate changes, that kind of thing. But also, climate clearly is global, right? I mean,
yes, it is.
The air doesn't care if this is Illinois and that's Missouri. It doesn't make any difference. That air is going to flow up right over it. And Cuba is completely politically isolated, and the history there is deep and
very.
We would never, but they're completely isolated, and yet they extreme weather events, for example, start to happen. We all remember what happened with Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. I mean, those are Gulf of Mexico, that basin of the ocean, and those weather climatologists and American ones needed to be able to communicate with each other to anticipate where that storm was going to go and how quickly it would develop. And so there was a lot of emphasis on the importance of the scientists communicating and the health professionals communicating, even if the governments themselves couldn't do it. And right now they can't. Yeah.
Very good. Wow. That's beautiful. And I when I think about the initiative and I think about Fergus Falls, I can't help but think about the 85 Black folks that moved right after World War II.
You know that story?
Oh, yes. And my daughter's family is a part of that family, the Tate family that moved, yes, and was a part of Otter Tail County up in Fergus Falls there. And so I was thinking about the initiative that you are doing. Within your initiative, do you have kind of a historical restoration as a part of the initiative that really encompasses some of the historical markers of Fergus Falls and the celebration and the funding of some of the organizations that might be popping up there, wanting to restore some of the rich heritage of Fergus Falls in that area?
Well, Barbara's been around Fergus Falls longer than I have, although Barbara also left and then returned. But, I mean, there are other organizations who are philanthropic, who support like the arts and history and culture. I would say the way we dip into it is to try to restore Main Street vitality. These little towns all have main streets. Those main streets have history.
Yes.
And then prehistory. There's the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center just east of Fergus Falls, and that's glacial history. When the glaciers came through, that's why we have so many lakes here. But we don't do that, but other groups do.
Okay.
And other groups don't work on climate and on democracy the way that we do. So I guess we're kind of we kind of link arms.
Okay. So there is a collaboration.
Yeah, right. And Very nice. Idea there. So what's the goal in my mind? The goal, the North Star in a way, is a really high thriving, connected community, right? So, and it's that pluralistic community idea. And you got to have all of that. I worked in higher education. I worked in community colleges. I understand how important it is to train for work. Everybody has to earn an income and put food on the table and keep a roof over their head if they are able to do so. But I really worry that support for arts and music, humanities, poetry, you name it, is the first thing slashed on that we put on the cutting block when the budgets are threatened. And who among us? I'm looking at the six of us and the beautiful kind of orange colored wall behind Melissa and your beautiful yellow clothing. Who among us would want to live in a world that didn't have color and design and art and
Thank you.
fashion and earrings and jewelry and all of that stuff? And yet, we pretend, I don't know where we think it's coming from. It doesn't crawl out from underneath a rock. It's coming from artistic people and creative people who make our lives worth living. Music. I mean, do we not get into the car and listen to music when we drive?
Oh,
Where does that
don't we
music
all?
come from? Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we have about a good 2 minutes left. If someone
Okay.
wanted to shoot a quick question, otherwise we are at a place where does anyone have any last question? Okay, I know Barbara does. They go way back.
I always do. Well, I'm going back to your Master Gardener era. You worked for the community gardening organization, St. Paul. Do you use any of the Master Gardener tips or experiences in your current job, or just tell us about that?
In my current job, integrated pest management. I have no idea. That's I'm just joking. Integrated pest management is something that, when you see ladybugs released into the garden, that's the idea. They will go gobble up all the aphids that are on your tomatoes and all that kind of thing. So, you might be able to make a corollary to human communities and have integrated pest management, among us. But no, I don't know. I have to think about that. Thanks for this. You've asked me a question that stumps me a little bit.
Good.
Other than thinking, it's all connected and we all love color. And you've got those beautiful flowers there in the desk next to you.
Yeah.
Again, nature's beauty is something that it enlivens us. It gives us it inspires us. And makes it worth being human and just loving it. And for all of you who have never been in Fergus Falls, I want to extend an invitation to come up. It is, every place we live is probably the most beautiful place in the world, but this sure is one of the most beautiful places in the world. We'd love to show it to you, have you experience it yourselves.
Yes. Well, we want to thank you, Anna, again for being with us and for all the innovative work that you are doing. And as you said, as this is the last time that you will be in these types of positions, you are leaving your legacy everywhere you go. And so I know that your name will be echoed throughout the generations for the work that you're doing today. So we thank you. We change the world one woman at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one life, one word, one gesture at a time. And we hope that you are doing the same. And so we look forward to seeing you again on another edition of It's a Woman's World. Change the world, be innovative and inspiring.